been watching plenty of science fiction movies lately, so I wanted to make this list about my 5 favorite science fiction movies. Sorry, that was 10, I meant 5. My 5 favorite science fiction movies. Starting off, number 5 is Okja, directed by Bong Joon-ho. This movie is presented to the audience much like a fairy tale, and it feels like a fairy tale. However, there are glimpses of darkness throughout the story that might surprise you like it surprised me. I really wasn't expecting those hints of darkness throughout the movie from a movie that feels essentially like a fairy tale, a very old school one also. But this movie succeeds at doing that. It succeeds at bringing a lot of tragedies of the real world and the pain of reality into a fairy tale that seems like it was made for kids. And the movie maintains a childlike sense of wonder in spite of all of the dark things happening by having a child protagonist and a connection between that child protagonist and a mystical creature who the main character likes to call Okja, hence the title of the movie. And it's that connection, I think, between the little girl and this mystical creature that really tugs at the audience's heartstrings and really makes us care about these characters and want to see them win and root for them throughout the movie. And that's what the heart of the movie is. It's this relationship between a little girl and this mystical creature. But still, the supporting characters of the movie are also really colorful, especially Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays this living, breathing cartoon character, and Lily Collins too, who plays a really cool, swaggy, more quiet character who has a red hair that really fits her. She should really go with that red hairstyle more. Really like that hairstyle. And Paul Dano plays a violent, slightly unstable guy. And the good thing about all of their performances aren't just that they are really solid performances, but also they are very subversive performances in their own ways. Because I don't think these 3 actors usually play roles like this, but they really succeed in bringing out the life of their roles thanks to the commanding direction by Bong Joon-ho. And number 4 is Under the Skin. Under the Skin was directed by Jonathan Glazer, who is one of the most respected indie filmmakers out there. And it stars Scarlett Johansson, who continues her string of fantastic indie movies. And in this movie, Scarlett Johansson plays a character that doesn't really speak much. Her character is very limited when it comes to the dialogue. She doesn't converse that much. So Scarlett Johansson is essentially given a very difficult task here of trying to convey the emotions of a character through her body movement, through her facial expressions, and through her eyes. Anything but words. And that's what Scarlett Johansson did, and I thought it was really impressive that she managed to do this. And she's also playing an alien character, so that definitely adds the difficulty too. This is a very difficult role to handle, but Scarlett Johansson, she's really good at these indie movies, I just have to say. Every time she stars in one of these indie movies, it always comes out great. And the direction is really good too, by Jonathan Glazer. And it's not straightforward. And that's the best thing about this movie, is that it's not trying to hold the audience's hands. It's not feeding you a lot of information that it wants you to know. It just shows you certain images in a certain way and expects you to make up your mind for yourself. So if you're the kind of audience who likes to watch a movie that could make you think a little bit, a movie that leaves some stuff up for you to decide, then this is a movie for you. It really lets the audience make up their mind about certain things. And the ambiguous nature of this movie is what really draws me to it. And number 3 is How to Talk to Girls at Parties, based on the short story by Neil Gaiman. This book. This is a great book, by the way, Fragile Things. You should read this book. And one of the short stories in this book is How to Talk to Girls at Parties, and now it's being adapted into this movie by John Cameron Mitchell. And the chemistry between Alex Sharp and Elle Fanning in this movie, it's really romantic, but in an alternate way, not in the usual way that you would expect. because both of these characters, they are outcasts of society. They aren't like the usual people that you would meet on the streets. They are more like they're outcasts, and so this is like a love between outcasts, and it has that uniquely romantic feeling about that. And it definitely benefits from Neil Gaiman's original concept. However, I have read the original story, and it's very different from the movie that we got. So while this movie kept the spirit of Neil Gaiman's original story and his writing style, it also adds in a lot of stuff on its own. This movie is very original and it's really weird, but a lot of times the weird movies are the original ones. So I definitely urge you to check this movie out for its originality and its willingness to become a very weird movie at times. Also, it has a great punk rock attitude too. And that punk rock attitude, it finds itself in every single frame in this movie. Every frame of this movie just screams punk rock at your face. And I love that as someone whose favorite genre of music is punk rock. I really appreciated how this movie not only featured a lot of punk rock music, not only does it have original punk rock music, not only that it has punk rock fashion, it has punk rock references, but it has a punk rock attitude. And that's what I love so much about this movie. And it's just also really weird. I must emphasize on the weirdness of this movie, because if you don't like weird movies, this is not the movie for you. However, if you want to watch a movie that's more original, you should give this movie a try. And number 2 is Never Let Me Go. This movie was adapted from the Kazuo Kishiguro book. I totally ruined the pronunciation of that name. I'm really sorry, Kazuo Kishiguro. I can't pronounce those kind of names. Anyway, I haven't read the book yet, but I've seen the film, of course, that's why I'm talking to you about the movie right now. And it's a fantastic movie. It's really tragic, and it's probably the saddest movie on this list. I don't think there's another movie that ups this movie in terms of sadness. And the sadness isn't just the ending, or isn't just one scene. It's the whole movie. It just feels sad. The whole movie feels sad. But certain tragedies in this world, I think, have to be elaborated, have to be shown to the world. Just because you don't look at tragedy doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So, and that's what this movie is about. Although it's a science fiction movie, the emotions hit hard in this movie. It's a very emotional movie, and I think everyone should watch this movie. It's a tragedy for sure, and not everyone is going to appreciate a tragedy, but I think it's a tragedy that is worth seeing. And it also has a very quiet, somber tone that I like, which leads to many reflections, both from the characters and from the audience as well. It has this very reflective, somber tone that I really love in certain science fiction movies. It really makes you think about a lot of things in life. And this movie does show some things in life that are more morally gray, the morally gray areas in science and experiments that definitely solidify this movie's place as a sci-fi classic in the way that it tackles the certain themes in science fiction, and the way it also connects those certain science fiction themes into the real world. At number 1 is a movie that's completely different from Never Let Me Go. It's E.T. E.T. is a science fiction classic. I'm sure you know what E.T. is, right? Everyone knows what E.T. is. Everyone knows that scene where there's a moon and there's a bicycle jumping over that moon. If you don't know what that scene is, you should just go watch E.T. right now. If you haven't seen E.T., just go watch E.T. It's my favorite science fiction movie of all time. I think that's enough to convince you. But if it's not enough to convince you, you can go online and look at various forum posts about how great E.T. is. But personally, what's so great about E.T. to me is a childlike sense of wonder that is unparalleled in any other science fiction movie. Some other science fiction movies have that element of a childlike sense of wonder, namely Okja, but in E.T., it's a completely different level. Like, this movie can transport you back to being a child again once you lay your eyes on it. It has that power that I don't think any other science fiction movie has. With certain scenes in this movie, are so wonderfully shot, and they really evoke a sense of wonderment in your heart, and really a sense of adventure too. The relationship between E.T. and all the other kids in this movie is a very innocent relationship, a very innocent, childlike, and pure relationship that warms my heart till this day. And certain moments in the movie make me cry so bad. And even though I've seen this movie so many times now, they still make me cry because the emotions in this movie are very on point, just as the special effects are very awe-inspiring. And this movie is just awesome, whether it be the visual effects, the emotions, the directing by Steven Spielberg. Everything in this movie is what you could possibly ask for from a science fiction movie. But mainly it's the sense of adventure that you want in a science fiction movie. That is why I consider this movie the best that there is in science fiction to date. So these are my 5 favorite science fiction movies of all time, and I definitely urge you to check out all of them. But definitely E.T. If you haven't seen E.T. yet, please watch it. If you have seen E.T., please watch it again.